I struggled with hitting big draws and blocks. That's the only thing that I could hit.
That feels personal.
Yeah, and
like
so
you're attacking me here, Trevor.
I constantly lost my spine inclination.
Yep,
It drove
same issue for me.
drove me mental. So what this makes me do, I have to do everything correct in my movements, from balance to rotation to side bend, but I don't have to think about all of these now. I can keep my eyes right here centered with this. I'm going to work the left side back behind it. Now that's lined up with that. Now from here, I'm going to keep my right hip, my trail hip, back and away from this, and this is what allows me to maintain my spine inclination and work the trail side of this to here.
We'd like to thank Element for sponsoring today's video. It's important to stay hydrated on the golf course to replace the water lost when you play and to keep that brain focused throughout the entire golf round. You should really be thinking about hydrating in your pre-round prep, just like you make sure you've got enough golf balls, a golf glove, tees, and all that. Element is a fantastic on-the-go solution for beating dehydration. Unfortunately, most electrolyte drinks are loaded with sugar and a bunch of artificial ingredients. Element is a drink that replaces essential electrolytes without sugar, coloring, gluten, or artificial ingredients. It contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio: 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, 60 milligrams magnesium, formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a sample pack with any order. That's 8 single serving packets free with any Element order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors or share Element with a friend. You can get yours at drinkelement.com/ecgolf, and the deal is only available through this link. To perform at your physical best every single day, proper hydration is key. All right, guys, so in today's video, we have a drill that Trevor showed me that I think maybe is literally the best drill I've ever seen. Certainly, like you mentioned, to be able to learn how to use your body correctly during the downswing.
Yep.
This is a drill that Trevor's going to guide us through that helped him really fix his early extension, learn how to get into the 70s, even under par with his scores. It's going to help a lot of you as well. It really helps you learn how to keep the hip depth and to be able to have the tilts to keep your inclination to the ground. So, a little spoiler alert, but Trevor, you're going to guide us through how to perform this, what the feels are, what it does for us.
Absolutely. So what I like so much about this drill, one, you're not hitting a golf ball with it. That's the first thing. So it allows you to actually rewire neurologically how to change something. Okay? So it gives you the ability to feel side bend or to feel rotation in a new manner that you may not have felt before, and we don't have the golf ball to influence how we're actually going to move. Okay? So how I do this, so I've got this eye range stick right here. I have a metal tension rod that's running across it, and I'm going to put this from right here, I'm going to put this a fist away from where my belt line would be.
Okay.
Okay? So what I struggled with when I was younger, probably partially because of how my setup was, my left hip would work this way. So my left hip would work out this way, so I'm losing space. Now from here, then my right hip would work that direction, so now I've got no room to swing the golf club. My arms would get so trapped behind me that I would have to pull them down, tilt out of it, and I struggled with hitting big draws and blocks. That's the only thing that I could hit.
That feels personal.
Yeah, and
like
so
you're attacking me here, Trevor.
I constantly lost my spine inclination.
Yep,
It drove
same issue for me.
drove me mental. So when I started doing this, once I fixed my setup, so I would go right here, I would go a fist away from here, and now I would take this is an extendable stick. You can also take 2 alignment sticks, duct tape them together.
Okay.
Okay, so from here, once I go over this, what this is making me do is this is allowing the trail side of my hip to work back initially. So the trail side of my hip's working here so that my left side is staying in its same spot right there.
Okay.
So this is what allowed me to open this up, which allowed me to then go into left bend and maintain my spine inclination. Now from here, what's great about this is if my right side starts early, I'm going to run into this. Then I'm going to fall into my secondary tilt and I'm going to run into the stick back there like this. So what this makes me do, I have to do everything correct in my movements, from balance to rotation to side bend, but I don't have to think about all of these now. I can keep my eyes right here centered with this. I'm going to work the left side back behind it. Now that's lined up with that. Now from here, I'm going to keep my right hip, my trail hip, back and away from this, and this is what allows me to maintain my spine inclination and work the trail side of this to here. So my goal with this is I never want this stick running into that, and I never want my pelvis to run into it in the backswing or in the downswing.
So good.
So it makes me, one, my feet have to be working correctly from a balance perspective. I can't do all of this in my heels, otherwise I'm going to fall away from, I'm going to run in that direction. So I have to start out on the balls of my feet. I have to rotate properly. I have to have side bend, because if I don't have my side bend in the right spot on my downswing, I'm running into this. This is a very common theme I see even out of good players, as they fall into the secondary tilt just like I did. And that's why you and I hit blocks and hooks our whole life.
That's right.
Okay, so from here, I start off doing this slow. So I'm going to go lead side works back. I haven't touched the post. Trail side starts to come down while I'm staying on center. I haven't touched the post, and I'm there. So I'm going to hold a lot of these positions for probably 3 to 5 seconds. So I might go up to the top and hold this. I'm going to work it back down to where my trail hip has stayed back to center. So now I'm back on center right here, and this is parallel. Then I'm going to work my trail side to the golf ball, and I'm going to hold that. Because this is a very different feel for me. Being a person that's been early extended and stood up my whole life, that is where I had to bring the most awareness, was being able to keep my trail hip back and actually go into side bend this way. That is what a setup in a station like this was huge for me. It taught me how to understand how I needed to move so that I could then start to put that into my motion.
Same for me too, and I appreciate that explanation. I think that's so freaking good. One of the things I noticed when you do that, Trevor, if you take your setup one more time, where you're roughly a fist away at your belt line, I think most people will be surprised how close that is. But when you make your backswing, not only does the left hip stay back of that, but your belt buckle actually gets farther away from the rod compared to where you started on the way back.
Exactly, so that's working this way.
And then it stays farther away as you start your downswing.
Exactly. Now that's what puts me into this posture piece that I'd never felt in my life before.
And most people haven't.
That's why I think it's very important to hold this spot right here. Bring awareness to it. It's like, all right, what actually feels different right here? Well, my feet feel different, my pelvis feels very different, my core feels different. And then for me to continue moving through this and get this to the golf ball, it's like, wow, that feels wildly different.
Yeah.
That feels wildly different. I can feel how much my feet are working right there.
Can I hop in there and try that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to take my setup here, one fist away. So it feels dangerously close there.
Dangerously close.
Okay. Closer than I want it to be. This is across my...
All the way up on shoulder line. There you go.
Line. Okay, so I almost feel like my belt buckle is getting a little bit farther from the stick there.
Yeah.
My lead hip's not going in nearly as much as normal. Right about there.
100%.
And then my hips are going to stay back. Okay, as I'm coming down here.
And that's where you would work that too. And so this is probably the piece, like for you and me, that is insanely different. We're not used to feeling this hip back here and that much side bend in the trail side.
And I don't feel any, like, that doesn't hurt or feel difficult for me. It's just obviously feels different compared to normal. I definitely feel the side bending more and feel my hips staying back more on both sides. You know, one of the things when you do this too, I like this as a visual, when you take this out, you can almost even imagine that it's like there's a little bar there or something when you're hitting that your pelvis stays back of. And this is a really good early extension mover. And I know we'll talk a little bit at the end about how to set this up, but you said we can tape 2 rods together, and this maybe someone can just put, like, you know, their golf bag in front of them, or like a, you know, some kind of chair or object like that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just have a little object. So after I'm doing a couple of these, obviously I'm feeling the motion there. I assume you do some of these no ball and then gradually, or no club, gradually introduce a club and start making some swings with the same concepts.
And then we start making swings with the same concept. And what I think is really important from this video right here is anytime we're doing a drill, you need to make sure you can actually bring awareness. Like, so like you said, you felt very different with where your pelvis was. So like what he'll notice right here is as he works this back, okay, it's gonna feel like, it's gonna feel like his belt line stays inside of his toe line. His belt line never moves closer to where his toe is, which actually keeps his core down longer. So that would be, like, that was for me, that was the piece that really resonated with me. So it's like, okay, my belt line's actually not moving towards my toes. My core is staying down a lot longer, because drills are only as good as how we can actually put them into retention, like how we can actually retain them and say, all right, what am I taking out of this that is going to help me move this into my actual motion?
And this feels for me, Trevor, like My pelvis is staying very centered, and I'm definitely feeling like the side bending on both sides. And when I'm doing that, this stick is pointing, what are we saying, like 6 inches or so outside the ball?
Yeah, you could even take an alignment stick, or you could take a golf club and you could put it about that far outside of where the ball is. Now you can use that as actually a tracing mechanism right there as well.
Point.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely feel the ribs and the rib cage doing that. Why don't we take a moment, we'll quickly kind of explain how to set this up. We'll hit some shots with those feels.
Perfect.
All right, so for you guys to set this up, Trevor, what are like the little checkpoints for them to make sure they do it correctly?
So this stick right here, this would be the length of what a driver would be. So this is the length of a driver, basically on your toe line. You'll want to have an alignment stick that's going to stick into the ground that's a fist away from you right there. And if you wanted to, you could set 2 alignment sticks up that would be the length of that, so that when we trace this, we would have this object that we have to miss right there. And then as well, adding a club on the ground about 6 inches outside of it that we could trace back and we could trace through.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy thing, especially if they have it at home. Like, so this is roughly hip high, 1 fist away, driver length, clubs maybe 6 inches or so outside. Okay, I think that's pretty simple. Why don't we hit a couple shots with those feels?
Absolutely.
Okay, Trevor, so we just did those drills. I'm gonna hit a couple shots here and kind of talk through the feels. I got a 7-iron. Even right away setting up, it feels like I'm able to replicate that kind of wall feel in front of my hips.
Absolutely.
And do the same thing. So I'm gonna feel like my hips stay. So the noticeable thing for me when I have that wall there is I can see that my hip wants to go more in towards the ball.
Yep.
Right away. It's like the first thing I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, my hip doesn't stay back like that normally. Okay. Which then probably gets into a little bit of this. Okay, so the hip stays back. My left hip stays behind the wall. Yep, so my hips feel noticeably deeper, which are probably like literally an inch, but feels like a foot.
Yep.
Okay, so the hips are staying back. I'm gonna start there. Yeah, so that feels like my pelvis is, again, significantly farther back, which I know enough to know that it's moved a 1/16 of an inch. But I got that same wall there. Left hip stays back. I do feel a sense of my belt buckle is almost farther away from the ball on both sides, while still having like my head on the wall. It's kind of the sense I'm getting. So my hips are moving farther back. That felt really nice. And I'll tell you what, dude. Like you put this in your swing. This video is about you and fixing your leg extension, but for me, same things, dude. Like these feels for me not only help with every ball striking category, hit it more solid, straighter, etc., but gosh, it feels better and more athletic. Like to have space between my hips and the ball feels really good. If you're someone who early extends too much on the way back or down, gosh, that feels so much more athletic, doesn't it?
It's the first time that you and I would actually be able to feel like our arms have somewhere to move.
Oh, exactly. So hips feeling back, one more. Yeah, like that feels so good and athletic for my hips to stay back. So I gotta obviously feel a little bit more, and I can get into some of the tilting pieces so I don't overdo this part. But if you struggle with early extension, if you're looking to improve your ball striking, you want to improve your pivot pieces, have the hips deeper, get the tilts right. Honestly, I know we do some YouTube titles and stuff sometimes, but this is probably the best one I've ever seen to get your body moving correctly. This will work if you work it slow and steady, okay? Do a couple of reps on many more days, not a million reps in one day. Slow and steady, build these in and get yourself a high quality coach. Go see Trevor in person or online. We'll put his stuff down there. You can come to us in person or online. Get a coach to work with that can guide you through these things. These can make a world of difference. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below. Trevor, thanks, man.
You got it.
You.